3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Fourth Line Podcast, part of Full Press Radio. This is August the 3rd, 2021. With you today is myself, Carl, and Stevie Nick.
It's hard to keep track of our days when our recording is all out of whack.
Our recording's all out of whack. It's like, I don't know about yourself, but for like many people in my life, it's like peak taking time off in the summertime. So no one has any idea what day it is anymore.
And honestly, in the hockey world, with those exciting kind of 2 weeks that led up to that free agency frenzy last week, it's been pretty quiet. And I haven't been checking my Twitter as much.
Yeah. Definitely a lot has been not happening since then. Sorry, I just got very distracted. So I wanted to share with you something that you actually shared with me. I'm going to share back to you something, but I don't know if you went into the full details of it. You came across this afternoon and it kind of made the rounds. This piece from a Russian interview with Nikita Zadorov talking about Nathan MacKinnon.
Yes.
And why I was thrown off with it was because the guy who actually wrote that tweet, apparently I went to high school with that guy. So that was why I was like, wait a second, I know that name. Yeah. So
you just realized that right now?
Just right now. As I went to go click on the tweet and saw the name and got confused. So that's why I was a little rattled there. So hey.
And now he's gone viral.
So I have no idea what he's been doing. I also worked with him for like about a month at a Staples in town here. So
you worked at Staples? Oh, here we go. We talked about this was going to go off the rails. Let's hear it, Carl. Best Staples story.
Honestly, I don't really have anything. The standout one for me was that I'd booked time off to like go with friends on a trip for the weekend. And after I'd booked time off, they still booked me, but never called me to be like, why aren't you showing up to work today? And so I showed up next week and they're like, hey, why weren't you here on Saturday? I was like, because I wasn't working. That's why. Anyway.
So they just booked you and never told you?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say you took some time off and just never went back. Walked out the door and never walked back in.
It was the most temporary of jobs. It was like I was doing some work up in northern Alberta, and as happens, forest fires shut our work down. They were like, the fires were too close to the work. So what I had planned to be doing for all 4 months of my summer off in university got canceled. And this was like, I think I worked there for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, maybe. It was just something to do. It was that or Blockbuster or the pet store. And Blockbuster told me I was overqualified. Which really, I mean, no wonder Blockbuster went out of business.
I was going to say you should have gone with Blockbuster. I would have gone with Blockbuster.
Yeah, right? Watching movies all day, hanging out, chill.
Giving recommendations to little kids. Like the movies those Blockbuster guys recommended to me as a kid, no kid should have been recommended those movies.
Is there one that you remember as like a movie I watched because the Blockbuster guy said I should?
I'm trying to think of what would have been the most uncomfortable. Like American Beauty.
How old were you when you watched that?
I don't remember, but like we'd go on a Friday night with my mom and we'd be like, so, anything good we should rent? And the guy's like, oh, this is an Oscar winner, American Beauty. Great movie. Look, commentary on the actual film aside, not a good movie to watch with your parents when you're a kid.
Yeah, that's a fair statement right there.
The parents at the end of that movie really focus on the plastic bag. So what'd you think about the commentary on the plastic bag? And you're like, what? Hold on. Are we going to ignore everything else that happened here?
So you watched that movie with your family and then like you broke it down together?
Like very briefly. It's one of those credits roll and it's just silence. To be honest with you, I don't even remember if we finished the movie. It seems like the kind of movie that my mom would shut off halfway through and be like, "Okay, we'll see what's on TV."
Yeah, I think we've all had those movies. I'm trying to remember which. There's one that I vividly remember it being turned off, but I don't remember what the movie was. Yeah, Blockbuster was a good time. Now, now you can just pick whatever you want. Have you watched the Blockbuster documentary?
I have not. I didn't know there was one.
There is. It's on the last Blockbuster, which is in Bend, Oregon.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it because it talks about the rise and mostly the fall of Blockbuster and how this one store manages to hold out. And it's just it's the most nostalgic hour and a half of your life that you'll ever spend.
Oh, interesting. So I don't want to, I know we've been talking about movies for a while, but I got one more going down that route because I went on a documentary kick last week. And at night, sometimes I do work and I'll put a movie or something on just for background noise. And I put on this documentary. I didn't do a wink of work. It was on HBO Max. It's called Woodstock 99. And it went through, I didn't even know there was a Woodstock 99. I was too young to be tuned into that stuff.
That was the Limp Bizkit one, right? Where they tore it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where they started setting fires in the field and then the Red Hot Chili Peppers came out and played Fire. It's just what are you guys thinking?
Yeah.
And Limp Bizkit's they're asking me to tell you guys to mellow out, but I'm going to sing break stuff instead. What a ride that was. I mean, nostalgic from the music perspective, but man, that was that was an interesting set of events that happened that weekend.
All right. Well, I don't live the same life that you do. I don't have HBO Max, so I'll just have to listen to you tell me about it. So thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Well, what led to this whole thing?
Yeah.
We've seen the regiments that athletes have to do all the time, and especially right now with the Olympics on, you tune into the Olympic broadcast and they're like, this person. I mean, what it takes to be an Olympian is next level because a lot of, NHL players are making millions of dollars a year to be at the top of their game. Their entire life is centered around it. But Olympians, many of them go and work at the bank and then they go and they train and that's pretty much it, right? It's that much harder because they don't have the financial backing that professional athletes do. And so you see kind of the crazy things that they have to do. But Nikita Zadorov, and I don't know the context of this, but he kind of got into what Nathan MacKinnon does. And I feel like this is something that he probably picked up from his boy, Sidney Crosby. This feels like a very Sidney Crosby-esque list as well. So he pays a dietologist $50,000 a year to take care of all that. He also has a live-in doctor and physio during the season. I went to the physio last week. It wasn't that difficult for me to drive out to the physio place and get that done, but living in the house.
Also, physio's hey, here's some exercises you can do so you don't have to come back for 4 weeks.
Right.
You got to do this every day?
Yeah. I mean, so especially...
Go ahead. I was going to say that's we're on fire today, Carl.
It's literally Woodstock 99 in here.
Let me start tearing down things off my wall.
Don't tear down Phil. Leave him up there.
Oh, Phil's not going anywhere. Don't worry.
Okay.
So he pays the physio $1,000 a day.
Yeah.
And rents him an apartment.
So 1,000. I mean, so it's only during the season. So he's only getting paid $150,000 plus board,
right? So
plus room to do there.
$150K per year. I'm making note of all this, by the way. We're going to tally it up. Plus an apartment where in Denver,
downtown Denver apartment. Let's assume that's $20,000 a year.
$20K a year. Okay.
Do you have the dietologist for $50,000 a year?
I got the dietologist for $50,000 a year.
Because there's also his chef that he pays $100,000 a year, which that seems very reasonable, right? I would think that it would be a lot of these guys probably have chefs or cooks that they pay to come in and make their menus, and that way they don't have to think about it.
Yeah, and I assume that, at 100K, he doesn't need to go out and pay for the groceries on top of that. Like, that's just all to take all of that off of his plate and put it back onto his plate.
Put it right back on there. Okay, so where are we sitting at so far for him? So just for like people he's hired to do things, where is
$120,000 per year?
That number doesn't seem correct.
$50K for his dietologist.
Yeah.
$50K for his.
So that's another 100.
Sorry, that says 150. I thought the one was a dollar sign. So we're at $320,000.
Okay, 300. That seems. Which is about what, 20% or 5% of his total of his salary. I would gladly pay 5% of my salary for a chef to cook for me, for a live-in physio / doctor, for a dietologist and a chef. So this all seems like a win.
Plus tip, though, right? Like, you got to assume he's giving them a nice tip at the end of the year.
I think birthday and Christmas presents are pretty okay from him.
What do you think, like, at this level, like, what do you think a tip for these guys or a gift, I guess, at Christmas would run them? $5,000? Probably.
I don't know. I mean,
seems like a lot, but if you're Nathan MacKinnon, it's probably not that much.
But I would think, so let's say, I mean, I guess it's different because I think, what are you expecting? And I know that this is something maybe more of several years back, but if you're in like a job and you're making $100,000 a year, what are you expecting as like a Christmas bonus? Is like $5,000? Is that seems like a reasonable amount if you think of it as like just a straight job and not like a personal relationship?
Yeah. I mean, I would think so.
I mean, I wouldn't know. I've never been the person making $100,000 getting $5,000 bonuses, but hey.
See, it seems like a nice amount of money to get if you're like a chef by trade.
Yeah.
Like a nice lump sum. Okay, yeah. There's more to this, though.
I was going to say, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So then it's what he is eating while he's there. So he apparently only drinks water, which like right now I'm looking at you over there. You're breaking that rule every week when we're doing this show.
Absolutely, I am. I also drink coffee every single morning. Like, does this guy not drink coffee?
That was going to be, what would be if you could only pick, so you can drink water and one other thing for your entire life. Is it coffee?
It would probably be coffee, yeah. I can live without anything else.
And like, I mean, I don't know, because I'm about 50% of the time I drink my coffee black anyways. So like, same. I'm fine if I don't get to put any cream in it or milk.
Yeah, I'm 100% of the time I drink, but I like different styles of coffee. So if I have to choose between like drip coffee or espresso, or I make cold brew at home, then the decision gets harder.
Okay. So which type of coffee do you think you would pick?
I'd probably stick with drip coffee because I need it first thing in the morning, and it's what my stomach can take. Like, I don't think my stomach could take just a jet black espresso first thing in the morning.
See, I think I would go espresso. If I was only taking one type, I would probably go espresso because there's more variety of what you can do with it. Like, I could make it into like cappuccino or an Americano or...
Yeah, you're not
pretty much
wrong.
Just those two. If I'm not allowed to put milk into it, it's pretty much just those two. But
yeah, you can't do lattes or anything. Anyways, so no coffee.
No coffee. No alcohol.
Gatorade?
I would think that there's probably some Gatorade. Unless his bottle on the bench is literally like just that's all he ever has is just water.
I mean, that's what this makes it seem like. I wonder how mad he gets if he accidentally picks up the wrong bottle and gets Gatorade.
It's like, I've ruined everything.
Now that would be a good prank. You put his name on like the Gatorade. It's like the most low stakes prank ever, but he gets so mad.
Yeah. Well, so like no dessert, no sweets for him. And here's the thing that I think starts to change things, because it says that he got rid of them from the dressing room and pregame meals. So all dessert is gone from the dressing room and pregame meals, which, like, I mean, if you're having a piece of pie in the pregame meal, maybe not ideal either. But hey, if I want to have a cone after a game, Nate, why not?
But it doesn't sound like it's just the desserts. It sounds like it's like all the bad stuff.
And things that
like
I've never,
red pasta sauce.
even the things that I've never even thought of, like white sauce for pasta or actual pasta. Like that's gone as well. It's chickpea pasta instead of them.
Oh no, Carl. How do you say that word? Pasta?
Pasta?
It's pasta.
Now,
it's pronounced pasta.
Okay, but is it?
Yes, it absolutely is.
Like, do you have like an Italian grandma who could tell me?
Yes.
Okay, that's all I needed to know, because I don't have an Italian grandma who could tell me. So if that's what you've got.
So not only does he ruin mealtime for himself, he ruins it for everybody else on the team.
Can we do you want to know? Ooh, no. Interesting. Okay, so here is how to say pasta the British way.
Okay.
Pasta.
Do you hear that?
Pasta.
I heard it, yeah.
Okay.
Sounds like a bit of a hybrid between both of our ways.
Here's how to say it the American way.
Pasta.
Oh.
So, turns out I'm more British and you are more American.
That checks out.
Anyways, there you go. And I've learned a thing tonight. I thought that was how Italians said it. Turns out it's just how Americans say it. There's no way to say, it doesn't tell me how to say it in Italian.
So my grandma just makes no sense then.
No. This 11-second YouTube video might be able to tell us. Never played a YouTube video on the show without just checking it first.
Pasta. Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly.
We've learned something tonight. Where were we? Okay. So pasta's gone. Pasta's gone. And so like just all the food is gone. What would be like if you were to be on this team and you think even of like the days when you're trying to eat the healthiest, what it would be the thing that he's done that would most upset you? Dessert, pasta, pop, only water. Like what is the thing that you would miss the most?
I mean, I'm not a big fan of sweets and I don't really drink pop. So it would probably be messing with my pasta because I really like my pasta.
What's your go-to pasta dish?
I mean, I make a good chicken parmesan.
Okay.
With spaghetti. I love it. But if I'm like out, a spaghetti bolognese.
Which is, for those of us that are not as cultured as you are.
It's like the least cultured dish ever. It's just spaghetti and red pasta, like red tomato sauce with a bunch of ground beef in it.
Okay. So that's what I make then.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
I'm sure there's like a very special Italian way of doing it, but I get it from the old spaghetti factory, which is as far from Italy as you can get.
Yes, that is exactly the furthest from Italy as you can get. Well, that's great. I mean, I'm a big ravioli guy when I go to restaurants. You can like, there's a really good Italian place that I like to go to just outside of the city here. And they'll do like in the fall, they do like a pumpkin ravioli. Do
they make like those big ravioli squares that are like almost the size of your palm?
Yeah, they're pretty big. I'd say like they're bigger than an inch. They're probably like 1.5 inches, 2 inches.
Yeah, that's the stuff.
They're good. Should make my way out there, have some of that. Also, gnocchi. Love me gnocchi.
Yeah, gnocchi's good.
Those are my two go-tos if I'm going Italian.
And apparently I just like spaghetti.
And you're just going to you're literally going to the old spaghetti factory. It's their signature dish. You're not going to go off book. It's like those people that go to the Cheesecake Factory and don't get cheesecake.
Yeah, makes no sense.
What are you doing? Nathan MacKinnon would never eat at the Cheesecake Factory.
Funnily, no, not after what we just learned. The Cheesecake Factory. How does he go for like team meals and stuff?
I guess
he's just very specific with his order.
I was to say he just orders off menu. Can I please have this? I mean, maybe just go salad.
I guess.
Do you need something? You need some sustenance in there.
Yeah, just with like plain chicken.
Yeah, can I have a chicken breast? I could see. I mean, if that's what you're doing, if you're cutting out that many things, and you're training, you're playing, you still need those calories. I would not be surprised to just see him show up. And it's like, we've removed desserts and everyone just has a rotisserie chicken waiting in their locker for them. There's your pregame meal.
Do you think guys are cheating on him? Do you think they have like Twinkies tucked in their shoulder pads and stuff? So when they pull it over their head, they just scoop up the Twinkie?
Oh, I think some of those guys for sure have deals with the training staff. You have to. Right? You're like, look.
You go in for your massage, the door closes. He rips the towel off the massage table. It's just a buffet, an ice cream buffet.
Yeah. Nate goes for his. He's like, what? Why is there a sprinkle? I see a sprinkle.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Anyways, news of the week, Nick.
I just want to call out one quote from this that I thought was hilarious. This is who? Zadorov?
Yeah.
Zadorov. Nate is like MJ. I don't want to make a direct comparison, but his way of thinking is very similar to MJ. Nate is like MJ. Is that not a direct comparison?
I mean, Zadorov might not be like the best person to look at for like correctness, but yes.
So he makes a direct comparison to MJ. Then he goes on to tell a story that I thought in my head, oh, that's kind of like Michael Jordan. About how Nate MacKinnon will, if you miss a pass in practice, he'd skate over and literally scream at you. Like if the puck was off just a little bit, he wouldn't move his stick to try and catch the puck. He'd stop skating, turn around and yell at you to make a better pass.
No wonder Zadorov wanted out.
That is intense, man.
His passing skills are not up to par, so
yeah, clearly.
But Avalanche used to have terrible when he showed up there. Their passing and their breakout was atrocious, so it's worked.
Yeah, I mean he's turned into the player they needed him to be. Like he's the best player on that team, one of the best players in the league. Huge part of why the Avalanche are Vegas's favorite team to win the cup again next year.
Yes. Like not the Golden Knights, but the betting side.
I realized as I said that I was going to come out wrong.
Everyone does that. It's not just you. Like You see articles all the time. It's like Colorado or whoever is Vegas's favorite. I'm like, look, you can't, there's a literal team who doesn't even go by Las Vegas. They just go by Vegas. You can't do that anymore. Sportsnet or whomever.
So are you going to put money on the Avs for next year?
No. You don't bet on the favorite.
You know what I'm going to start doing? I thought about this last year. Every year, I'm at the start, before the season starts, I'm going to put $20 on the Red Wings to win the Stanley Cup.
Right now, it would make you a bunch of money.
It's not going to happen, but if it happened, whew.
You'd be that guy on Twitter posting it. It's like, hey, look what I have.
No, that's not me, Carl. I'm not the guy who, when he wins the lottery, he tells everybody. I've heard the horror stories. That's
a good call. What are the odds right now, do you think, of the Red Wings to win the Stanley Cup?
Oh, God, I don't know. I wouldn't even fathom a guess.
Okay, well, I'll look it up here. But this is a very good transition because one of the biggest pieces of news this week came from Evander Kane, and news from his wife. And the big thing that came from it is apparently Evander Kane has been, according to her, has been betting on San Jose Shark NHL games, but specifically San Jose Sharks games, and working with bookies to swing the results of those games. NHL is investigating. He denies it. This could be a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, this could be a huge deal, and it's coming kind of amidst the NHL already playing defense on this front with their referees earlier this year. So, betting and hockey have only really been a thing officially for a very short period of time. What's it been, a year, 2 years?
Yeah, at 2 years, because I think it was pre-COVID that it all became a thing.
So in those 2 years, the NHL has been faced with two pretty big, incidents that could affect how people bet on hockey or how betting on hockey is perceived.
Yeah, and this is going to be, when you have players doing this, we see players all the time, especially I think towards like the NFL, right? You see players playing in fantasy football leagues, which I always thought was weird that like someone in your locker room has you on their team. It'll just always seem like a weird thing to me. But this is happening in hockey as well, right? There's those kinds of things. There's certainly going to be like low scale in room bets, things like that are happening. Yeah. But when you start to get to this area where you're working with bookies and betting on it, if this were the case and this were to be happening, because there's no way for us to sit here and say yes or no, I think Evander did it or I think he didn't. But if this does happen, what do you think the consequence should be for him?
I think he's done in the league, whether it's a forced suspension or just teams being like, nope, we're not bringing that into our room. I think it could be the end of his hockey career.
I would venture to say so. We even saw, news came out after this whole thing happened that the Sharks tried to trade him and were not able to. And they did it because his teammates said that they weren't wanting him to be part of the team anymore. Partially because, we had earlier this year, right? He had his debt situation where the team might have cut him to help him with that. There was that situation. And now apparently the team is wanting to try to move him elsewhere and wasn't able to. So for him, he's already nearing that point, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I don't know, man. It's a weird situation and it's very serious. And, as much as we like to joke and have fun when we're talking, I think that, there's, he obviously has a problem when it comes to gambling. He said so himself in previous statements. And that's an awful thing. And it's now extended to affect his family, and they're going through a divorce, and there's a little kid involved, and, all that stuff. It's not funny. It is very, very serious. And I think that everyone is now taking it that seriously. Everybody involved, like the league and Kane and all of them. So I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it. We obviously can't sit here and speculate. That's not the right thing to do. I personally just kind of hope for, the best for everybody in the situation, that they can all kind of figure their own lives out and return to a place that brings happiness to themselves.
Absolutely. And I know that, I'm going to kind of contradict something you said. I do, obviously, what's most important is him figuring out life stuff and his family and all that. However, I think it was the guys from Evolving Hockey looked at his, like, when he's been scoring his goals, looking back in this last year. And he had, the third period, which is when you would think that you would be swaying this, was the goal or the period that he was involved in the most goals, like on and off the ice. he had I'd say about 40% of the goals that he was involved with for and against were in the third period, which doesn't necessarily say anything. If you're looking to, sway an over under or a spread, that's certainly the time to do it. But it didn't stand out as like ridiculously lopsided.
No, and like statistically speaking, he was the best player on the Sharks last season.
Yeah.
And he had one of the best seasons of his career last year.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think this is a bit of a different topic, but I wonder, is it possible in the game of hockey for one player to throw the game? Maybe the goalie.
Goalie would certainly be the easiest one, for sure.
I mean, you could maybe try on your shifts, but I feel like the video coaches and the bench coaches are so in tune with what's happening on the ice that they'd catch on to that, poor level of play pretty quickly and sit you or pull you. Or I just don't know how one player could affect a team sport to that extent.
And to be doing it that consistently that you could say like every third period, he's giving up a goal or, turning over the puck more in the third, like it would be difficult. And especially, to say I'm going to score more in the third period, that also seems like something somewhat out of his control. If he's that good that he can be like, I'm going to start scoring more in the third period, then he should just score more in the rest of the game and the Sharks can win.
Absolutely. But in the same vein, he's just one guy.
Right.
Like he's not going to be influencing the score all the time. Do you think that the NHL, when they, entered these gambling partnerships and legalized, well, they didn't really legalize gambling, but entered that kind of game, do you think they thought they'd have to defend the integrity and authenticity of the sport as much as they've had to this year?
If they didn't, then they did a very poor job planning this out. If you don't have like a plan in place of how to show that your game has integrity, that your officials have integrity, that your players have integrity, if you're not saying, look, we put them, even to say like we put them through like training, right? Like this is part of your like onboarding process of like rookies to learn about this. And we like, we talked to them for 15 minutes, but we checked that box. If they don't have some sort of forethought for it, then they're destined to fail.
Do other leagues have to do it like this?
For sure. Yeah. I would think as soon as you're into that realm, that, you're dealing with millionaires who some of them bet, some of them have betting problems. Some of them just do it very safely. And you're going to have that issue. Before we switch off of this topic though, I do want to bring up, I know that you did not want to tell anyone. So let's say if you were to bet $20 on the Detroit Red Wings this year.
Yes.
If you were, I'm not saying you are.
Okay.
You would make a profit of $4,000.
That's a nice, I could be Nate MacKinnon's chef bonus right there.
You could buy, if that's the price for a chef, you could buy a personal chef for 2 weeks with that kind of money. Just treat yourself real nice.
So $20 right now would net me $4,000 if the Red Wings won the Cup next year.
201 to 1 odds.
How do we feel about Nedeljkovic now? Can he carry this bottom three team to the end?
You know what? I don't think so.
No, me neither.
But he is better than Jonathan Bernier.
Yeah, I tend to agree. So sorry, New Jersey Devils. Somehow you're part of this equation now.
Hey, they're in that whole web, right? This year is not just the rotation of goalies because they got Hamilton from the Canes. It's all just a big circle. We're all just shuffling deck chairs on the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, we sure are. And, I feel like we didn't emphasize enough last week how topsy-turvy the Canes went over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'm excited to do. I mean, I almost said like leading into this week, I didn't even tell you this because I was like, nah, that's too much. But I was like, man, there are some of these teams that I want to just do deep dives into right now and really get into what these rosters are like. Because the Canes team, especially with some of the comments that Eric Cole made today, I don't know if you saw those.
I didn't.
He made some comments about a certain defenseman that they brought in, a little controversial, Mr. Tony DeAngelo.
Yeah.
And how I believe the word was that he cares more about winning than Dougie Hamilton does.
That Tony DeAngelo does?
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy.
Carolina's in for a ride.
Carolina,
and to think, I used to like that team.
Carolina might be in for a Woodstock 99 type of season.
True. Well, let's take a break here. We'll be back on the other side with the rest of the news of the week. 3, 2, 1.
We're back from our break. I forgot I was supposed to start talking. So obviously I had nothing prepared, which is why I started with, we're back from our break.
We are back from our break. And
you want to talk about some goalie news?
Let's talk about, some big goalie news this week. Let's start with one, mostly because this was a topic that I was so upset about last week, and I really appreciate our listeners. One of them mentioned that they could really see me going through the stages of grief throughout the episode, like anger, acceptance, depression. I don't know what the rest of them are, but apparently I went through all of them with the Darcy Kemper news last week within about 15-20 minutes. So
that's fantastic.
I didn't mean to. It was just the reality of life. But related to that, this week, the Seattle Kraken, who signed Philipp Grubauer, which is why the Avalanche went and got Darcy Kemper, and I had that emotional event during the show last week. The contract that the Kraken signed was rejected by the NHL. The first big free agent splash that the Kraken went out and made was a dud. Now, apparently they've resubmitted it to the NHL. It's going to be fixed, but that doesn't really get me excited about what the Kraken are doing here.
Doesn't really give me a ton of confidence in the people managing their cap.
Which, I mean, they invested a ton of money in like personnel, like analytics, and I would think a capologist.
Is that a job?
Yeah.
Like
it
the
better
title is
be
capologist? It's not like salary, it's capologist.
I think that's the title. Yeah.
That's a cool title. Those must be cool business cards. Okay, can we explain briefly why the contract was rejected?
Okay.
I'm going to try.
Okay.
And you're going to correct me.
Okay. Let's see if you can do a better job at finding the problem than the capologist from the Kraken.
So, with NHL contracts, you are allowed to front load contracts with actual dollars up to a certain extent.
Correct.
Correct so far? Okay. Whew, I'm sweating over here.
Front and back load.
Front and back load. Okay.
Yeah.
Only up to a certain extent.
Correct.
But there is an increase between years 2 and 3 of this contract that exceeds the percentage of increase that's allowed under the CBA.
That is the theory that has been put there, yes.
Okay, so in the CBA, after the first year of salary, you can only increase the next year's salary up to 25%.
Correct.
And the increase that they put into the contract exceeded that 25%. Therefore, the contract is not allowed.
Correct.
All right. I got it.
All right.
I could be the capologist for Seattle.
There you go. So here's the issue is that amount. So the first year of his contract is $5 million, which means 20, and is it 25%? You said 25%, right?
You can increase up to 25%.
Yes. And so I think it's the maximum amount. So it's not allowed to go up more than 25%, but they had several stages of increase that had it going from 5 million all the way up to 7.25 million, which is much more than the 1.25 that they were allowed to. So they actually went up a whole $1 million more in the middle of that deal than they were allowed. So
yes,
they had to fix it. But I mean, we just explained it and figured out that issue very quickly, and it's not our jobs. I mean, my business card does not say, I don't even have business cards. My business card does not say that. Does yours say capologist?
No, I don't have business cards either.
Well,
frankly, I think they're a waste of money and resources. Nobody uses them anymore.
Well, especially, I mean, you've literally not even been able to come close enough to something. What, are you going to, from 6 feet away, throw them a business card and just hand out paper cuts instead?
Yeah, you learn to throw the paper like frisbees.
Yeah. Which, I mean, if those are coming in red hot, it's going to slice some fingers.
But it's kind of interesting the way they've structured the actual salary on this contract, because it rises every year for the next 2 years and then it starts decreasing.
Yeah.
Which I don't really understand. Like, you've guaranteed him this total pool of money. Why does it matter that in year 3 he gets paid the most of it?
I think part of it is cash flow reasons for the organization. And part of it is, you would hope not, but part of it's buyout reasons too. Is like, how much money are we going to be buying out? How much benefit have we gotten from this buyout over the course of it? It does go into, there's a lot of factors that you need to think about these, instead of, I think, back to the Drew Doughty, which was like, no signing bonus, straight 10 million a year for 8 years. Let's just get this done. So it's a little different depending on what you're wanting out of the deal.
Right. So from a business perspective, they're anticipating their revenues to grow every year. So by year 3, they expect that the revenues will be at a certain point that they can pay him more money that year.
Yeah. And I would think they'd also be looking at, like, what are we paying other players on our roster that year as well? Like, what are we already locked into? Do we have someone whose money's dropping that year? So I think all of those got to go into it.
Cool. They'll get it done though.
It's
like, these two are destined to be together at this point. So they'll figure out the cash thing.
I could have only imagined though if he went and signed with somebody else now, and then they've already traded the other goaltender back to Washington. It just would be a disaster of a way to start for this franchise and be the most embarrassing of ways. So they need to get it done.
More of a disaster than how they've already started.
Do you consider it a disaster?
It's not a disaster, but they're not going to be good. I mean, I don't know. We said this about Vegas too, and they turned out to be who they are today. Although I think their management team has a few different tactics. I was underwhelmed by their expansion draft selections, and this team doesn't excite me. And they've come out and said that they're building for a few years down the road. Well,
I know that you said that they're not the most likely, but where do you think Vegas has them in the odds? Where would you put them if you were to compare their likelihood to an already existing NHL franchise? Where would you slot them? Seattle.
Above Detroit.
That is correct. Detroit is actually tied with the Sabres for the worst odds to win the Stanley Cup this year.
Yikes. I wouldn't put Seattle that much further ahead of them. They're probably bottom 5.
They are not bottom 5. The bottom 5 are Sabres, Wings, Coyotes, Ducks, Jackets. The Kraken slot in as a tie with the Winnipeg Jets. And between with worse odds are the Flames and Canucks, and right above them is the Flyers and Stars have better odds. So that's kind of where the odds makers are putting the Kraken at.
So if I put $20 down on Seattle right now,
$700 profit if they win.
I like my odds better with the Red Wings.
but put it on both.
Boom, $4,700.
When they both win the Stanley Cup. I mean, the math checks out on that one. I think that's the best way to do it for sure.
Yeah.
This is an interesting one. Right below that, I mean, I'm just on this site. They have, and this is like an incredible future NHL bet. The odds of Ovi breaking Gretzky's goal record is about 4-1. So you would get, if you put that $20 down on Ovi, you'd make $60-$70 profit on that.
That's it?
Yeah.
Wow, they have incredible confidence that he's going to break that record.
The odds are better that he won't, but still interesting. I would have thought that it would be a little bit closer than that. I think that is more likely than they think.
Do you think he's going to be able to do it over the next 5 years?
I think so.
I kind of think so too. I think 5 years is enough time.
Because he needs to get to 895 goals. Ovechkin, 894. He currently has, and this is just the episode where we write down numbers and try to do math on the fly.
Yes.
He currently has 730. He needs 164 goals in 5 years. Average of 33 a season.
That's high.
But in a full NHL season, he has had, I mean, in this last COVID shortened season, 24. The year before that, also shortened because of COVID, 48. Before that, 51, 49, 33, 50. He is literally in an NHL season that has not been shortened. He has only had under 33 goals once. And that was his, his sixth season in the league. And that was 32. He literally, he has never scored less than 32 goals in a full NHL season. The man is unbelievable. I think he can do it.
I think he'll do it too. Man, that's going to be insane. That's going to be crazy.
That's going to be, I mean, it'll be the most appointment when he's sitting at like 893.
Yeah.
It's going to be the most appointment regular season hockey ever. You're not going to want to miss it.
Do you have it there? What year did Gretzky set that record?
No.
Well, it was probably his last year in the league, right?
Yeah.
So 99.
Did he retire? Did 99 retire in 99? I never realized that.
I think so.
Look at that. He's so on brand with everything.
He really is, though. Like, that was definitely a marketing decision, right? He's like, do you want to play next year? He's like, I could take it or leave it.
Yeah. Let's end it with the one that ends with my number. Let's do that. All right. Other goaltending news. Marc-Andre Fleury is officially playing for the Chicago Blackhawks this year. Where do you think this does with him in town and playing for the team? What does this do to the Blackhawks' likelihood of, I mean, they need to get back to the playoffs. Let's start there. Playoffs, yes or no for the Blackhawks?
Man, it makes them better. I'm going to say wild card contender.
Okay, which is good call on remembering that we're back to a wild card because I did not.
Yes, we absolutely are.
So they'll be back in that Central division. So if we think of that Central, you've got Colorado, presumably going to be winning or
number one. Yeah.
Right. They're favorites to win that division. Can you remind us who else is in that division?
St. Louis.
St. Louis, they got worse this offseason.
They did. Dallas.
Dallas is
probably top three, right?
Dallas is better than the Blackhawks, yeah.
Yeah. I'm going off memory, by the way. I think Winnipeg's in that division.
Winnipeg, Minnesota,
Columbus,
Nashville.
And Nashville. So like Columbus is obviously at the bottom of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I really don't know what to think about Minnesota anymore. I would think Minnesota and Nashville are probably in the same grouping, and I'd throw Chicago in there too.
Yeah.
So you got Colorado, Dallas, Colorado, Dallas, Winnipeg, probably in the top 3 of the division.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got probably St. Louis, Chicago. I'm going to name all the teams. Nashville and Minnesota contending for a wild card.
Yeah.
Everyone but the Blue Jackets.
I believe that they have the Coyotes coming into this division as well this year. That's correct? Because of
Seattle?
Because of Seattle.
Oh, could be.
So also, I mean, Arizona would be at that bottom with Columbus.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's what we got. I mean, so it's tight. I would put them probably right now without thinking too much about it. I'd put them above Nashville. Maybe. I'd put them above Minnesota. Minnesota has way too many question marks right now.
Yeah, they really do.
I'd put them above. So I'd put them 4th in that division, which is right in wildcard spot.
What about St. Louis?
I'd put St. Louis above them, but like could be close.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting. I wonder what they said to Fleury to convince him to come and play.
Probably you make $7 million this year. Play once more.
Come and earn it.
I was like, it's not that hard for him to show up. Like, you have to really hate the city of Chicago to not want to do something for $7 million.
It kind of felt like more of an emotional decision on his part, right? He found out he got traded on social media, probably felt incredibly betrayed, bitter about it. And his gut was just like, I'm not going anywhere else. You know, F you guys.
Yeah. It definitely seemed a little like, I mean, and also trying to force his hand, right? Like, trade me somewhere else now. I'm not playing for you. And then they just were like, well, we're not trading you. So you play or you don't.
Well, I kind of wonder if part of the deal is come play for us. If we're out of contention for the playoffs, we'll trade you to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, or back to Vegas.
Or back to Vegas.
We'll get that AHLer back from Vegas. Could you imagine at the deadline if that was the deal? That's the thing. Like, he's worth way more at the deadline now. Chicago would obviously love to have him there.
Yeah. I still don't get the whole Vegas. Like, I get you choose Lehner over Fleury. Fine. I get that. But Fleury's still worth more than what you traded him for.
That cap space, which they've done Vegas's offseason has been, again, another team that I want to dive into what all the moves that they've done because they've been busy. Yeah. Maybe we just do that start next week. Just instead of division preview, we just start diving into rosters and seeing what's going on.
Starting with Vegas and Carolina.
There you go. We've got it next week. Stay tuned. Let's take a look though. Buffalo Sabres are down there with the Red Wings. They are apparently looking to trade Jack Eichel. And I say apparently because there's been no regard or even really no contact between him and the team. The big news that came out this week was that he has been waiting to have surgery and has been looking for consultation with the Sabres doctors and staff and is not getting any contact back from them. And he is still on the team. So one, they're tanking his future value with this organization because he still needs to have that surgery. He hasn't yet. So he's likely not going to be ready for the start of the season. And they need to trade him. And I just feel like at this point in time, they could trade him for Marc-Andre Fleury and it wouldn't be surprised.
I totally agree. I think we should rephrase your initial sentence, though. It's not the Buffalo Sabres are looking to trade Jack Eichel. It's Jack Eichel is looking to be traded from the Buffalo Sabres.
That's okay. That is the more accurate way of putting it. You're right.
Because it sure doesn't feel like the Sabres want to trade him at this point.
Well, and I think that they've obviously tried, like reached out to some teams. At this point in time, you would think that they've done that. And from all reporting, we've seen that they have. And they might not like what teams are offering them.
Well, apparently they don't. And like, look, all the power to them. They're in control of this negotiation. They obviously have valued the player at a certain, amount, and they're not willing to waver from that.
And they shouldn't have to.
No, they shouldn't.
I think back to, and it's in no way, I mean, it's similar in a way. But like everyone knew Matt Duchene was supposed to be traded at the trade deadline. And then he was supposed to be traded at the draft. And he wasn't traded at the draft. And then we saw the very angry Matt Duchene shows up for picture day pictures, which I still laugh at every time I see them. And then it was a few months into the season when he finally got traded, and it ended up being a great deal. Joe Sack and the Avalanche were laughed at for not moving him, for tanking his value, and waited until they got the trade that they wanted. I think the Sabres have to take the exact same approach.
I think the thing with the Sabres, though, is this has gotten way nastier than the Duchene thing has. Like, this is getting to the point where I could honestly see Eichel just sitting out the start of the season until they trade him.
Which then they can just say, well, if you're not going to play, they'll roll his salary over. Because if you sit out, like, it's not going to take a year off your contract. The team can keep you another year. You're just stuck in Buffalo another year and you're not playing. You're not making money. You're not making any of your endorsements. Is that really what he wants to do?
I just don't understand why they're being so stubborn about this surgery.
The surgery doesn't make sense to me. Let the guy have his surgery. Get it done.
It would be done by now. He'd be in recovery mode. He'd be ready for the start of the season. And their reasoning is just like, it's never happened in the NHL before, which to me doesn't really make sense because it's happened in pro sports. It's happened in sports that are way harder on the body than hockey is.
So sorry, what are they saying that's never happened in hockey before?
This is disc replacement surgery.
Oh, okay.
That he wants to get, right? Because the team doctors said, look, just rest, relax, physio, rehab, and it'll fix it.
Hire a live-in physio / doctor and you'll be fine.
I mean, at $10 million a year, he probably has some sort of arrangement, right?
I would assume that the guy who lives with him is probably the guy telling him he needs the surgery.
Yeah, exactly. So he did that, and the injury didn't go away. So he went out and got a third-party neuroscientist, physicist, whatever it's called, neurophysicist. It's not a physicist.
I really hope that the person, he's like, hey, I found this doctor is like a PhD in neurophysics. And he's like, no, Jack, you definitely need the surgery. He's like, doctor said so.
He's the kind of guy who has like an ankle long lab coat. He wears those big round glasses over his eyes.
Yeah. He's just been staring at lasers all day. He's like, definitely, this is what you need.
All of his experiments include lightning of some sort. So anyways, Jack Eichel went and got this third-party doctor to say, this is a surgery that would help you here. And basically what it is they remove a vertebrae on your spine and replace it with an artificial one. That's like the Nick version of explaining that. So please don't like take that to heart.
Which I think that you did a better job than a neurophysicist would have done.
Yes, lay down on this table here. Yes, right under the silver bowl where the lightning comes out of. Yes. I'm
now imagining it like Princess Bride, and they're literally just sucking the life out of Jack Eichel.
I think that's what the Sabres are worried about.
That's a very valid reason. I'm now, you know what? I'm on Team Sabres now.
I don't even remember where I was in my story. Point is, Jack Eichel wants the surgery. The Sabres don't want him to get the surgery because it's never been performed on an NHL player before. And that's where the disagreement is. And
he literally has a case of other professional athletes getting it. Seems to make a ton of sense. So that's where we're at with the Jack Eichel saga. I don't see any. Do you think he's traded by the time the season starts?
I don't really know.
No, I don't either. Do you think like trade deadline? Before the trade deadline? After? At? Not after. That's not allowed.
I don't think it'll happen anywhere around these like milestone dates where player values and prices are kind of all out of whack. I think it'll happen like in November or December.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. You get that. I mean, because this year is going to be extra out of whack because you're going to have that Olympic break, which maybe the NHL gets some more news on that next week. It doesn't look, and they still say they want to go to the Olympics, but it's not looking too promising that that's going to actually be the case. So that's the news of the week, Nick.
We did
it. We spent most of the show talking about doctors, apparently.
Well, that's what we are, Carl.
Just a couple PhDs sitting around talking about neurophysics and diets.
Yeah, that's us. That's our show. If this is your first time listening, you can expect more of this.
You can expect this is probably the most we've talked about hockey in the first episode after the free agency day ever.
Yeah, probably.
So you could actually expect less hockey throughout the rest of the summer. Although next week we just planned it. We're deep diving into the Hurricanes and the Knights.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll tell you about what other documentaries I watched.
And I'm going to go find out like how to pronounce a dish to eat, to cook. And we'll talk about that too. Okay. I'm going to be making Italian food this week. So that's pretty good.
Let us know how it goes.
I will. It's sandwiches. So like Italian beef. It's going to be good.
Oh, yeah. That sounds delicious.
Mm-hmm.
So next week, we will rehash a bunch of the topics we talked about this week and do a deep dive on two teams.
Stay tuned next week. We'll be back, presumably back on Monday next week, but we'll try to let you know when we'll be here. But subscribe wherever you listen so that we're there waiting for you. And we just show up. You're like, oh, thank you, Fourth Line, for being like the one hockey place still giving us content this summer. We appreciate you. And we appreciate you for listening, especially if you're still here right now. Thank you. And let us know if you're here. You can find us on Twitter at Fourth Line Podcast with the number 4, mail at thefourthlinepodcast.com or thefourthlinepodcast.com to find all the places where you can find us. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Full Press NHL, and Full Press Radio are our internet homes. You can go find us at all those spots. And until next week.
Time for us to wrap up another Fourth Line show. I know what you're thinking. You don't want us to go. Jack Eichel wants to get surgery on his neck. But when they asked his doctor, this is what he said. Yes, my pretty. Step into the chamber, and when it fills with goo, just hold your breath. It'll all be fine. We'll see you next week.